Tina Koto Katwa, Assalamu alaikum and warm welcome in the New Zealand Pakistan Research Forum. The forum provides a platform to showcase Pakistani origin researchers' work to wider community. I'm Imran Muhammad from Massey University and I will moderate today's panel discussion. Today's session will focus on fruits of the future. We will discuss urban horticulture, kiwi fruit, and digitizing nature. It is my pleasure to welcome four distinguished scientists, Dr. Rubina Jibran and Dr. Jibran Tahir from the New Zealand Institute for Plant and Food Research, and Dr. Abdul Jabbar and Dr. Munazza Saeed from Zespri International. In terms of the format, each speaker will talk about their research in 8 to 10 minutes. And after their presentation, I will take questions from the audience. If you have a burning question, please write it down in a chat box. Let's start with the first speaker, Dr. Rubina Jibran. Dr. Rubina is a scientist at the New Zealand Institute for Plant and Food Research. Her research work focus, focuses on investigating flowering and color development as a crucial trait in urban horticulture. Welcome, Rubina, and forum is in your hand now.
Thank you, Dr. Imran, and thank you so much, everyone, for joining today's session. And my name is Rubina Jibran. I have completed my doctoral studies from Massey University, after which I joined LUMS as an assistant professor for a couple of months, literally. And now I'm working as a plant scientist in New Zealand Institute of Plant and Food Research. Oops. As a scientist, we try to identify the functions of plant molecules in controlling different traits, such as flowering, height, and yields. And to do so, we study different plant molecules, such as DNA, proteins, and metabolites. DNA contains all the necessary information that an organism needs to perform its life functions. Proteins are macromolecules that perform different functions in plant growth and development, such as they participate in food making for plants themselves, for animals, including us. And metabolites are the product of the metabolic processes that again play different parts in plant development and growth, such as they act as defense molecules against plant pathogens. During my research career, I have studied different aspects of plant growth and development. And today I'm just going to discuss key highlights of the research that I've been doing. During my PhD, actually, we tried to understand a very common problem that we see every day in our kitchens. Our fresh fruits and vegetables decay rapidly when we store them in kitchen or even in fridge. And this happens. Actually, this is the picture from my kitchen. And our aim is to make our fruits and vegetables happy and healthy for longer. And there are different kinds of fruits and vegetables, and it is really hard to study each vegetables and fruits one by one. So in science, what we do, we actually use some model plants, such as we can use a model plant that can model fruits, and we can also use different kind of model plants that can model the vegetables. So the thing is that the model species belongs to the same group of the plants that we want to study. And here I'm going to show a picture of a model plants that we use. And this is the fruit of that model plant that we use to model broccoli or cauliflower. And by using this model plant, we have created mutants in this plant. And we found that the food of this model plant produces the foods that is genetically different from each other. And so now the idea is to identify the genetic differences between these mutants. And now we have identified some of the genetic differences that are present in these mutants. And now the next step is to study these genes that we have identified in model plants to the related crops that we are interested in. Another interesting aspects of my PhD work is to keeping the cut flowers beautiful and healthy for longer time. We all know that despite good care, the cut flowers dies after a week or so. And we don't want that, particularly when you receive a bouquet on a Valentine Day. And luckily, we have a mutant in our model systems that produces more flowers. And amazingly, these flowers stay longer on the stalk compared to the non-mutant flowers. Now we know the gene that is causing this phenotype or the trait in our model system. And now we are trying to understand those genes in other plant species such as roses and daffodil, etc., so that we can store these cut flowers for longer time. That was my PhD work. And when we joined Plant and Food Research Center, then we started working on kind of more practical aspects of the science that involves big crops, such as I'm working on red raspberry. Red raspberry is very important commercial crops, and it is grown mostly in the colder region of the world. And there are two types of red raspberry that we know. One is that produces the fruits, flowers and fruits after 2 years. And the other ones that produces the flowers and fruit after 1 year. So this mutant is called a leaf flowering mutant. And this is very important mutant because by using this mutant, we can increase the growing area of the crop so that we can grow raspberry in warmer areas because it doesn't need the winter chill. And we are working to know the genes that are causing this particular trait in red raspberry so that we can study those gene or genes in other plant species such as kiwi fruit and other plant species that needs winter chill. And another mutant in raspberry that we are working is a dwarf mutant. Here you can see that this is the cultivar that is the normal, but we have a mutant that is dwarf. And so we are trying to understand the gene or genes that are causing this trait in plant, again, so that we can translate that trait in other plant species such as apples and pears and big trees. And this trait is very important for the future farming that I will tell later on how. Another trait that we do work in plant and food involves color. Color compounds are not only appealing to our eyes, but they boost our immune system. They act as anti-cancer and anti-aging compounds, and overall, they are good for our health. So how the work we are doing in plant and food fits with the future farming? Future is going toward urban horticulture. It means that scientists are trying to convert desert into controlled environment growth conditions. And there is a plan, and it is happening, that the rooftop of the big buildings are converted into indoor farming. And this kind of systems offers great benefits such as the transportation cost reduces, and it also provides a sustainable food source near to cities. And here, this is the examples of a rooftop of Thammasat, I hope I'm pronouncing it right, Thammasat University in Thailand. And here, this is the indoor farming happening in UAE. And as a scientist, what we are doing, we are working towards obtaining the plants that are easy to adapt in these systems, because definitely we can't grow 2-meter tall apple in these indoor systems. So we need a miniature version of apple. So that's why the gene that we are working in raspberry, we have already mutants in apple and raspberry that are developed. So we want to just study what is happening there and then translate into other species so that we can grow those plants in indoor farming systems. And the traits that we are looking other than dwarf is easy growing plants, and they are involved in continuous flowering and fruit productions, and they don't need the winter chill, so they have to overcome the dormancy. And then dwarfism that I already told. And then we also focusing on the plants that produce reduced prunings, particularly in case of grapes, because grapes need pruning to produce the good quality fruit. So we don't want to do the pruning because it's labor intensive and it's very expensive. And then time of the fruit harvest. So we are trying to get those plants that produce the fruits at the same time. Here you can see some raspberries are red and some are not red. So it's going to be hard picking up, because if we try to pick up by the machines, then it's hard, though machine can differentiate between red and green, but it's more easy if you get the fruit at one time that is ready to harvest. And so we are also focusing in New Zealand to produce the premium quality foods, because we can't compete with the number. So we are focusing that we produce fruits and vegetables that are loaded with goodies. And that's it. That's me. And thank you so much for joining. And I just want to acknowledge at the end my supervisors for PhD, and then my amazing team that I am working here in plant and food. And the funding for this work was provided by Massey Doctoral Scholarship, Master in Discovery Science. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Rubina. I think it's very interesting research, and especially I can relate it to myself as well as climate resilient cities, because this is really, really important aspect nowadays in our discipline. And I know, I mean, especially in Singapore now, it's becoming quite a compulsory actually for the each building to have to produce their own kind of the fruit and the food, and also it's good for the temperature and for the emission and low carbon kind of a
Yeah.
city as well.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
concept is creating edible cities. So,
yeah,
near to market, basically. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And and now our second speaker is Dr. Abdul Jabbar. Uh, Jabbar is a fruit optimization leader at Zespri International. His research interests expand to solve fruit industry challenges through research and innovation. Welcome, Jabbar.
Hello, everyone. Kia ora. Um, I'm Dr. Abdul Jabbar. As Dr. Imran just said, I wouldn't really go into that much boring introduction, but we'll just quickly jump on to what's my academic. My slides are not moving for some reason. Yeah. What my academic affiliations have been in the past. That graduated from Zikra University, Multan, Pakistan, and then did masters in horticulture from Faisalabad Agriculture University, and then did PhD in post-harvest around fruit quality space from Massey University, New Zealand. Um, and so just a quick overview of the professional affiliations around. Did some work in Pakistan, but mainly my professional expertise been developed along my time when I was at Massey during my postdoctoral fellowship, and then spent quite a bit of time in the industry as a research scientist for innovation and product quality development space. And then also spend again some time at Massey as a post-harvest technologist, basically working as a bridging, um, um, playing as a bridging role between the research community as well as the industry to build the gaps and to connect the dots mainly. And now I'm at Zespri International as fruit optimization leader, and I will just walk you through what my day-to-day activities are. This is just a disclaimer. In an industrial space, you don't really do much research, but you deal with quite a lot of research. Actually, you deal with more research than the time when you're actually doing research. So it's a bit diverse. But just before I go further along, I guess the question is, this is just a picture. I got it from Google, I guess. But as a consumer, to start the story, as a consumer, nobody would like to buy this fruit for sure. So, but when you go to the market, if you find a nice and beautiful looking, amazingly attractive fruit, as a consumer, you just like to buy it. But the question is how that fruit gets to that stage. So there comes my research journey, which is like around mainly traveling from farm to the consumer, that what are the different processes happening on the farm at the stage of the fruit ready to harvest, how we pick it, how we harvest it, how we process it, how we pack it, and then how we transport it to different modes, how we manage and manipulate the fruit quality during the transportation process. And then once it gets to the consumer, how consumer perceives it, and what's their understanding, likeness and dislikeness about the different fruit quality aspects is going to be. So this is quite broad. So as a in my current role as a fruit optimization leader, my role basically overlooks almost all of the aspects which are given in this picture. That the fruit quality, as I said, the maintenance of fruit quality, or processes to assure the fruit quality to be delivered to the consumer, starts right from the farm, and then follows through all of the processes during the supply chain. In Zespri, Zespri is a kiwifruit marketing company, and we export kiwifruit to almost all over the world. And it's one of the leading kiwifruit export company. So it just gives a bit of an understanding that how big a scale we are talking about, and that the fruit needs to get to all parts of the world, but need to maintain the brand, and optimum premium quality needs to be delivered to every consumer in every part of the world. So that's the mission for us, to maintain the fruit quality. But there it comes, thinking around data-driven horticulture. So as I just said, the fruit gets harvested, handled, packed, and then it gets to the store. And in the store, there comes in different storage management practices and approaches to be applied, and then fruit gets shipped on, and then the consumer eats it. But how all of these processes happen, just a quick nutshell, that at this time of the harvest, we need to consider some of the factors at what maturity the fruit is. As you may have got a bit of a taste from Rubina's presentation around the colors, etc. So we need to see what color stage the fruit is, what ripening stage the fruit is, how it's going to be driven along different supply chains, how it's going to fulfill the market requirements, how it's going to fulfill the consumer or customers' expectations, and then also involve some of the on orchard or environment data collection as well, which helps us make those decisions. Then once the fruit gets to the packing options, the fruit gets packed into by the use of different technologies, and then it gets to the storage, combining all of the information from harvest to the on orchard. We use different models and basically use the data to make more informed decisions for the fruit, that by the time fruit will get to the market and in front of the consumer on a dining table, then how the fruit quality will look like. So all of these decisions basically get to be worked along from really start. So yeah, I think overall my life is just around managing the fruit quality and making sure we deliver that. But at the same time, it also overlooks into looking for new solutions to optimize the processes. And then there are different new technologies we keep working on. I've just brought some few examples here around using some of the modern technologies around image analysis techniques, or using some modern camera image analysis techniques to get a bit of a view from the field, that once the fruit is in the field, what's the variability within the orchard, and to some extent within the vines, and then how we can manage and manipulate that variability by using some of those new devices which are shown on the screen as near infrared devices, which could help you understand and segregate the fruit for different quality. So, and then also along the supply chain, one of the main factors that is is looking for solutions around fruit physiology, understanding the fruit physiology, what fruits is responding to different temperature and relative humidity conditions in the storage, and as a result of different air compositions around the fruit, how its fruit quality is changing. And then it results into either a soft fruit or a good quality fruit. If fruit loses some water, becomes more wrinkly, and shows other defects which consumer may not like. So it's just around looking around different scientific solutions around these problems and basically optimizing these issues. The other key area, as part of the data-driven horticulture, my core focus is on looking for some of the opportunities we have with the modern machine learning tools, by basically using them to have more of an integrated data collection system, so that there's got a lot of processes we have currently in the fruit industry, like any other food industry, that are still subjective, and there is a scope which we are trying to explore further along, is that how can we further automate those processes, or we can take the subjectivity from those processes away and get more reliable and consistent data set. Yeah, so that's some of the overview from me, I guess. Yeah, thank you, and thanks so much for joining in. Yeah, look forward to the questions if somebody has any questions to the industry related. Yeah,
Yeah,
thanks.
yeah. Thank you very much, Dr. Abdul Jabbar. And we'll take question at the end of your own full presentation. And please feel free to write your question in the chat box. Yeah, I think it's a very interesting presentation, and especially because as I'm related to my research, I mean, we are a bit more on the supply chain side as well, about the urban freight, and I think it's that industry is also keep changing very rapidly because of a, I mean, demand of the consumers, which is changing as well. So, well, thank you, Dr. Abdul
Yeah,
Jabbar.
thank
And
you.
our third speaker is Dr. Munazza Saeed. And Munazza is an innovative leader post-Harvard at Zespri International. Her research interests include delivering optimum quality fruit to the consumer. Welcome, Munazza.
Thank you, everyone. Can you please mute? So, guys, you might hear some repetition what Abdul was saying. So, luckily or unluckily, he's my husband. And we have been studying the same subject from last, I don't know how many years, donkey years maybe. So we studied in the bachelor the same horticulture and post harvest, and masters from the same supervisor, and PhD from the same supervisors, and now we are working together. And yeah, again, luckily or unluckily, he's in the team who are our next users. So bear with me. So I will go through roughly the agenda. What I'm going to talk about today is the introduction, that I will give a brief introduction about myself and what I'm doing now, my current role and duties, and maybe a little take-home message for you guys. So just to introduce myself, I have mentioned earlier that I did my bachelor and master's of honors from University of Agriculture, Faisalabad, and my area was post-harvest horticulture. And I did the PhD from Massey University, and I won the Massey doctoral scholarship. And my previous work includes an affiliation with the ACIAR, Plant and Food Research, and Massey University. And at the moment, I'm working as an innovation leader post-harvest. So what I have done during my PhD was a small part of the post-harvest or supply chain. So I'm not going into detail because I think the work which I'm doing now and what I'm contributing now is more interesting and is more wider. So just to give a brief overview that what is innovation in the Zespri International Limited. So who are we? We are a team of scientists, which is very interesting that we are a team of scientists who are managing projects, and we are providing the science-based solutions to the industrial challenges, as Abdul mentioned earlier. That and he is the next user. They are the doers, and we are the finders who are bringing the innovation and the scientific solutions to the industry. So we have 5 wider platforms, so which start from the new cultivar, product supply, orchard productivity, and supply chain, and also creating the knowledge for health and communication. And along these platforms, sustainability, ZGS, scan and evaluation technology, and again, the ZGS, the other priority, runs in the longer terms. And we also, we are proud to contribute that we spend money on producing the capability, in the form of PhD, masters, and postdocs. So what I'm doing at the moment is that I'm looking after the area of supply chain out of these 5 platforms in the Zespri. And as Abdul mentioned earlier, so we have the supply chain starting from the picking, when you are picking the fruit. So I took the example of kiwi fruit here, but I'm talking in general for the supply chain, that when you start picking and then the process of grading and packing and shipping and taking the fruit to the market where we want to sell these fruit. And then we do the repacking and distribution, and then finally to the consumer. So throughout this process, so if we want to maintain the quality and we want our consumers to attain the optimum quality experience, then what are we doing this process? So I'm looking all of those activities. So I have put together that how this is working, that how do we work. So we are collaborating with our research partners and within the industry, for example, with our next user, the technical team and the other quality teams and others, and also with the wider industry, the post-harvest and supply chain. So I have put just one slide that these are the, but not some areas, but it's not limited to, it's more wider than what you are seeing on the slide, that which I touch base on the daily basis and what I'm managing. So it's broader than what I have done during my PhD or master's. So for example, say it's a simple question: when and how to harvest the fruit without compromising the quality. It seems quite simple, but if you think of the fruit, it's outside and it's a living thing, and how to, how to pick the technique and timing, how to pick that. So you have to go inside the fruit to look that what is the sugar ratio. I'm trying to speak the simple layman language. So what we are seeing here is that from the cellular level, a really cellular level, to the automation, like the non-destructive measurements to measure the bricks, which is the sugar level, and the dry matter, to that what will be the right maturity time to harvest this fruit, because this time will describe that how the fruit quality will be at the end of the consumer table. So it is very important. And the second one, how to improve the storage performance. So once we have picked the fruit, now comes that we have to take this fruit to inside the supply chain, and we are transferring this. And again, when we are transferring the fruit from the orchard to the pack house, how we are transferring that? Sometimes we get the skin rubs, and it seems quite simple. That's a skin rub, but so what? Yeah, no, you're not going to buy that fruit in the market. So we also look for the solution that how to transport the fruit from the orchard to the pack house, and we have the optimum quality. And also when it comes there, so we are doing the grading and sorting the fruit, where we try to remove all the defects and disorder which are very early, and then we have the how to store them for a longer period of time and without compromising the quality. So how we are achieving that? So we are funding a number of research which are looking at the ways of testing different post-harvest technologies and conditions. And to name a few, if you are familiar with the controlled atmosphere storage, where we modified the atmosphere of oxygen and CO2, since fruit is living organism. So you can ask me and the questions if you want to know more about any of those. And the other thing which we look at is more of an engineering side, that improving the fruit quality measurements. So we are measuring the sugars or the dry matter or firmness, which is a tension of the fruit, that how firm the fruit is. So you must have tried that when you go and buy the fruit. So you try to do it by your hand. So you're squeezing with this thumb. Please don't do that. Because you're damaging the fruit. So what we are doing here is that how we can improve our current methods. And we are trying to go beyond our current methods, which are destructive mostly at the moment. So destructive means that we are puncturing the fruit. If you see at the bottom here, so we are puncturing the fruit. So we are trying to go beyond that so that we don't we don't damage the fruit, but we still know what we want to know and increase the accuracy of what we know already, and introducing the more non-destructive tools that will also save us a lot of fruit from going into waste, and also the more accuracy. So Abdul explained it earlier, so I don't want to go into detail here. And also on this side, so we are enhancing the business sustainability credentials. Sustainability has become a very popular area in the recent years, and since the consumers are, they are demanding more and more plastic-free packaging, so we are also thinking, and we are also funding the projects which are looking for the ways to find the future-focused plastic-free or at least recyclable packaging, and how to reduce the losses. And if we are saving the fruit from going into the bins, which are going for the pig feeding, so that's also a sustainability win, guys. Then, so these are the few things which I do on daily basis. So, so now you can see that this is beyond what I was doing my PhD. So I'm covering all the areas of the supply chain.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Munazza. And it's
That's a little take-home message. Thank you.
wow, that's the new one,
Yep.
the red one. Oh, thank you, thank you very much. And as a consumer, I didn't realize, I mean, the complicated science and the process behind these fruits. Mostly we enjoyed and we picked uh, from the supermarket. No, thank you very much. And then another thing you brought up is, and I think I have to mention here as well. You brought up about Abdul Jabbar and and the relationship, and I think I have to acknowledge because as Dr. Abdul Jabbar and Dr. Munazza and the same Dr. Rubina Jibran and Dr. Jibran Tahir. Actually, I mean, the both did the all four did their PhD at Massey University at the same time. They raised their young kids as well, and we are really, really proud of all of you. Thank you very much. And now our fourth and final speaker is Dr. Jibran Tahir, and Jibran is a scientist in plant and food research, and he's a molecular biologist and data scientist with research interest in connecting machine and nature. So welcome, Jibran.
Thank you very much, Dr. Assalamu alaikum to everyone. I'll just put up. Okay. So when Imran Bhai talked to us about presenting something of the research story, so I just came up with a few slides where we can talk about our journey. When I thought about making this presentation for the common public that is around in New Zealand and related to Pakistan, I thought I should introduce with the picture which we used to do when I was in university. So in University of Agriculture, I was more working in the soils. But one of the sports that we really loved there was tent pegging, and going for something a little bit dangerous, which we can't do, unfortunately, in New Zealand due to the laws. So my basic interest was in soils and looking into the good bugs which are present there. So here's a picture that I pulled out from my master's thesis and which we got it published. So these two plants are actually similar, but when you uproot them, you found a difference in their root morphology. And we found that actually there are some good bugs which you put into the soil that can really help the plants to grow well into the soil, which can help them later on in fruits and yields. So this is the kind of science that I was exposed to the first time, and then we got this published as well. So giving us more closer view of how things are there which we can't see, but actually they have a lot of impact in agriculture. So talking about agriculture, then I was inspired by Norman Borlaug, who won the Nobel Peace Prize. And a lot of people who are from agriculture in Pakistan, they already know about him. He was the father of the Green Revolution. They fed 1 billion when it was a chaos in the food industry in mid 90s. So what he did actually, he bred stronger wheat varieties, and he did a lot of struggle in doing that. And that really helped Asian countries, including India and Pakistan, to grow more food for the population that was expanding. So while I was a soil scientist, I was highly inspired by this idea, and the basic lesson that I got was that genetics is a very powerful tool, So then I went for a PhD in genetics at Massey University, and the topic that I came to choose with was what drives resistance. So and I put two photos here where a plant is exposed to a disease, and it actually is fighting with it. You can see that it's half succumbed to the disease lesions, and then half it is healthy. But if you see on the right side, this hunt is going on. So here we have two species like a bug and the plant. And here we have two species as well, like cheetah and its hunt. But the problem is that with the plants that they can't run away from these bugs who attack them, whereas animals can move. So something is highly specific for plants that they have to fight where they are. And that is known as sicility, that you can't move from where you are. So they are perfect models to study how you fight something when you can't move. So for that purpose, we have to go a little bit deeper into the cellular level. And I've just put a picture here of a plant cell, which looks like, and it just looked like a pentagon. It's driving a lot of control on the whole country, for example, in one way or another. Similarly, a plant cells, has information to control what we see in its form, like fruiting or whatever. So inside the plant cell, there is a code there, and it is for normal public to understand what it is happening in terms of phenotype. So how a plant looks like is actually coded in each cell, and this coding is like DNA, and then you have these genes out there, but in a bigger sense, it's just a code, and it produces special molecules. These special molecules make plants what they are. I mean, their build, their color, their flower, and also they make these molecules a weapon which can actually fight the molecules coming from the bugs. So bug have this code as well, and it actually produces these special molecules which either ferment your milk into yogurt, which is one example, and then they have all these molecules which can cause disease. And so what is happening here is actually a nature's code versus a nature code, at the end of the day, in forms of these molecules. So this was one thing that I went through, and understanding how resistance is driven actually is through these weaponry molecules that are produced by the plants against these disease molecules by the pathogen, and how it actually happens. One thing that was which was very impactful that came out of my PhD was that I was able to find that that plants code for weaponry. Sorry, plant code for weaponry is evolving fast. So the code is changing, and it can cause self-destruction if the code for the growth is disturbed. So in a simple way, if the code has a problem for building, so it was a build B-U-I-L-D, but if somehow there is a mutation in the code and it's somehow changed, so there's a problem in this build, this was somehow sensed by the other codes which are coding for the weaponry. And that kind of self-alarms, it kind of self-destruct the plant. And this is the photo from my publication that came out that if the plant is exposed with this kind of mutations, the self-destruction pathway is on. And somehow this keeps a check on the plant growth in one way or another. But this was an impactful work, and we published in a very good journal at that time. So then I went back to Pakistan. So we were in Lums in Lahore. We had a time to teach there. While I was teaching there, we were able to do some good research actually, and making a more game theory on the resistance. So for a simple way of telling you that in a game theory, you have two opponents. So one is plant, and it's fighting with the bugs. And if you have used the Rubik's Cube before, you can see that it's a game as well. So if the Rubik's Cube is showing all the equal color on each side, it's a state that is all calm and cool. And it is given to the bug, and then the bug actually changes it into different colors. So this permutations that happens in Rubik's Cube is actually similar to changes happening in the molecules actually over time. And so one party of the game is trying to solve the Rubik's Cube, where the other is disturbing it. So we present that model, and then it's a co-evolution. It's a co-evolutionist arm race, like it's happening in circles. So plant has resistance, and it tries to make the Rubik's Cube in a good form. And when pathogen attacks, it's trying to disturb that cube by making permutations. And plant want to make it more simple again, and then it attacks again. So it's a continuous cycle that plants and bugs are in. And this was published in the British Society, so it was a good outcome of the work that we did in there. So while I was doing a lot of genetic studies, so you are very thrilled, and you think about, okay, can I save the world? So obviously you can't. So let's save a crop at least. So then we came back to New Zealand, and what was happening in New Zealand at that time, there was a big dip New Zealand was facing due to kiwifruit being lost to the disease caused by PSA, which was killing all the kiwifruit vines. The billion-dollar industry was at risk, and the idea was that we find resistance in it, and there was some kiwifruit already in the pipeline which were tolerant to PSA, and which was given to Zespri later on for commercialization. So what we found in my postdoc fellowship is that there is no single strong universal code for PSA resistance in kiwifruit. So in a simple term, there are multiple codes with kind of different efficacies, or performances. So there is no one way to suppress the bug attack. There are multiple smaller codes which actually work together to fight resistance. So just imagine if your Rubik's Cube is got larger and it has more permutations now. So it's harder to resolve by the bug. So in this case, plant is having a bigger size of a Rubik's Cube with more permutations. So this picture on the left side is actually showing that a lot of codes are there which are acting to provide a resistance in plants against the pathogen. And so, which is very sensible then, because if you have one code, the pathogen can break that code. So it's a hacker actually. And if you have more codes that are working together, then it's much more sensible. So plants are actually very sensible. And we got a very good publication out of this, which was published last year. Then I got a permanent position at Plant Food. And then my main area is actually to digitize the complex codes in plant species. So for example, if you look to yourself, being a human, you have 2 copies of complete code in your DNA, which makes you what you are. So in plants, the situation is very different, and we have more than 2 copies in plants. So for example, in kiwifruit and wheat, we found that there are 4, sometimes 6, or sometimes 8 copies. And these copies could be slightly different from the other copy, which make it very complex to study them. But it is very important to study because you should know as a scientist, you're working with the codes of plants, that what is happening on different copies. So the first goal that we are doing now is actually decoding all this, and then the benefit of is actually speeding the breeding process, because if we find that a particular section of your DNA has a code which is contributing to more fruits or taste or color, you can actually develop a marker around it. And in thousands and thousands of plants, you can find those plants which will develop into a plant that will produce good fruits, for example. And so I'm collaborating with Wageningen University. There's some good mathematicians and geneticists out there as one of the top institute in plants. And we are also collaborating with Alpha Genomics in Pakistan, who are working on wheat, for example. One of the things that have inspired me or working with the data science, actually we can use machines to explore more about plants. For example, there are a few photos that I put up there, a plant flowering and they are sick. So man has to go into the orchard to record all these observations, and then bees come in to pollinate them. So can we train machines actually to identify sick plants in orchard, or they can identify the flowers, and then they can actually do pollination even, or they can do pruning. So this work has just started recently, and we are working with closely with AI Works, and developing these algorithms which can detect all these features and then linking those algorithms to the machines. For example, there's a Harvard School prototype here for bee robotics, which can actually help pollinate. So something like this is happening in New Zealand as well, other parts of the world, where people can replace bees with robots to improve the pollination of the orchards and get more yield one day. What else we are looking is actually, I'm more interested in future is to how AI and artificial intelligence is helping us to understand one of the long-standing concept in science is the origin of species, for example. So Darwin proposed it 150 years ago, and obviously with all the theories of natural selection. But now we have tons and tons of genome data set with all these codes. Can we really fish out something that actually tells us that how species have been originated, and we can answer some really fundamental questions surrounding the origin of life even. So this is something that I'm looking forward to work with. So at the end, I would like to acknowledge Plant Food scientists. They're the team that I work with, so I'm really thankful to them. Massey University, where we did PhD, my PI and co-PIs. And then LUMS, we work with Ahmed Jawad. He's also a professor in New York Uni now, so we are collaborating. Wageningen, Dr. Peter, and Ibrar is one of our colleagues actually, as Massey now is running Alpha Genomics in Pakistan. And Dr. Shujat Khan, he's running AI Works now in Auckland. And my parents and a lot of friends who are actually there in this whole journey to support us, So the work from the kiwifruit actually led our team to win the Prime Minister's Science Award in 2017, and then we won the Science New Zealand 2018 National Award. My PhD was funded by Higher Education Commission Pakistan, and then I got this postdoc fellowship from EGMAT. Thank you very much for listening, and happy to answer some questions.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Jibran Tahir, and very interesting research. And again, I think thanks for mentioning that the Prime Minister Science Award and other science awards as well. And I think we are really, as a Pakistani community, we are really proud of your contribution actually and getting this award. Okay. I can see it now that a number of participants have raised questions, and some of the panel members actually responded to these questions as well. So thank you very much for engaging this one. And I wonder if there is any questions, and if you want to ask actually directly. So please let me know. Is there any question?
Dr. Saab, can I add maybe a comment, if possible?
Yeah, sure, please.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm Shuja. So just wanted to just add a comment. Like it's a first of my participation in this talk. Sorry, I should have participated all of others, but yeah. So I just wondering, like, just such an interesting talks and very informative and very challenging areas of work. You know, most of my colleagues and friends are doing. So just wondering, like, would be great if we use this platform to maybe to add some more value maybe to the science or technology. That would be something of really high interest to us, or in this case, if there's any possibility, any synergies that we can further explore, that would be something I think that would be really good.
Right. Thank you. Shujat. And I think one of the purposes all these panel discussion is actually to know each other research as well, so we can collaborate in future for research, for the funding, and any kind of a collaboration. So in
Yeah,
fact, I mean, this is my first time as well, actually, to hear all the four. I mean, panel members research, and I really enjoyed that one, and now I understand the science and their contribution, so thank you very much for that.
yeah. I just want to add from here in Gisborne. So this is also my first time, and it's a wonderful opportunity to listen all these great scientists and know about their great work. Yeah, thank you so much. And yeah, I think it's a wonderful forum, and I will keep joining these presentations in the future. Just one question that came to still in my mind from all the panels and the researchers. So, are these genetically modified fruits and vegetables equally safe as organic ones?
Yeah, they should be safe. They are safe actually, but and there are laws in the world already. There are countries where they are being consumed by humans. Uh, so actually, there are a lot of mutations in nature already happening. So what scientists are doing is just mutating the same way, but in those genes which help them from bacteria or bugs, bad bugs. So instead of spraying pesticide or any fungicide which can cause cancer in the food chain, it's better to you make resistant crops which doesn't need these poisonous chemicals to be sprayed upon. So there are countries in the world which are allowing, but actually European organization is resisting it, and so is New Zealand. So New Zealand is following a Europe trend set, which is being challenged every day by scientists. So there will be a time probably when Europe will do a change and New Zealand will follow it. But actually, Australia is a step ahead from Europe. Is actually allowing, a step back from Europe, is allowing some GM fruits to grow. But there are different kinds of GM foods, so they are safe nutritionally.
Oh,
Yeah.
thanks.
I just want
Just
to
to add a
add,
comment on that. So
yeah.
you go ahead, Mina.
Yeah, I just want to add that, we can mutate the genes of interest that we want to mutate without using this genetically modified enigma around it, because there are ways that you can treat the plant seed with the chemicals and they are considered non-GMOs throughout the world. So it's not just only one way of creating the mutant plants or the plants with the desired character by using GMO technologies. There are new technologies that are coming online, such as CRISPR-Cas, that is considered as kind of, still there are debates are going on regarding CRISPR-Cas use as in non-GMO technology, but there's going to be a time when all around the world, all the scientists going to agree upon it, because it's just got the potential to be treated as non-GMO. So there are always different ways that we can use to create what we want to create. And they are pretty safe because, as Jibran said, it's always happening, all the plants, because, now UV, how we create the mutants, you use the UV radiation and you create the variation in the genetic codes. So it's happening, outside right now. UV rays is hitting our plant throughout the world, and so the mutation is going on by its own. Only we don't know that it's happening. That's why we just always think, oh, maybe it's something bad about it. And I think it's the way it has been treated. Otherwise, it's pretty safe. Definitely, when GMO comes into the market, then we study each and single aspect, try to study, let's say, each and single aspect, and when it's safe, then it comes into the market. It's more safer than uncontrolled method where you don't know. So it's doable and it's good. Yeah.
Great.
So just to add, as a from industry perspective, that from the industries who work as consumer-focused industries, this is the genuine concern from a consumer, and that's why most of the time we see that the industries like the scale of kiwifruit even don't really go into that route, because the industries have to look after the business first, then for these sides of things. So your question is genuine, but the scientists' argument are genuine as well. So it's a matter of time, I guess.
Mhm.
Right.
Dr. Sab, I have one question from the entire panel. Actually, it's a generic question, and please ignore me for my inability to comprehend with the genetic knowledge. So I'm not a genetics person. But firstly, thanks for the good talk from all of you. एक general question ये है कि जो food में mutation is part of the natural process to an extent. हम खुद भी करते रहे हैं. अब मुझे नहीं पता कि basmati rice is a mutated form of the rice that we have used in the past, or if that is accepted norm, then why we have the argument on the other side, why we are mutating the other genes in other.
Basmati is a natural mutant, actually.
Yeah.
The whole world eats, 90% world eats coarse rice.
Yeah.
It's only Pakistanis eat, we're lucky to have basmati to grow. And because there is a mutation there, which helps in work in collaboration with the environment that we produce. So Pakistan has been eating a mutant rice for
Ages,
thousands
yeah.
of years, you know,
Yeah.
the civilization, Indus civilization. So it's actually a natural mutant, but yeah, so that's a very good point, actually.
So that's exactly what I wanted to say. Ke, not every mutation is wrong, but is there any particular experimental mutation that went wrong, and to in any food industry, in any such food, like जिसकी कोई ऐसी example जो आप दे सकें कि yes, it was not a very good idea to do it.
Actually, yes, it happens all the time. You know, I think we remember about the cotton, isn't it? So there was a cotton variety that was genetically modified, and they were trying to introduce some trait that Bona introduced, and then later on they found out that cotton variety lost the resistance against the pathogen, so it was more susceptible to the common pathogen. So this happens all the time. So because it is this happens because one gene like that we are mutating can control a couple of the other processes, but the idea is that to cover all the aspect, to first, that's why we scientists first, when we say we are studying this gene, it's mean we are studying what this gene can perform different function in plants. So when we know that broader knowledge, then we know, okay, if we mutate this gene, we can expect these kind of the phenotype or the trait from plants. And you know, mutants are present naturally everywhere.
Is there any evidence? There is actually no famous evidence which goes against the argument of GM food, other than that once you have a pollen in the field, which have the gene, for example, and the bees somehow pollinate and they can carry over the gene. So that's why the normal ecologists are also a bit scared about this technology. But there is no famous evidence actually, which is like food poisoning. I mean, nothing.
And a very similar question associated with the organic food. Is there any tangible evidence that suggests that the organic food is more resistant to pathogens or whatever diseases because it is more uncontrolled environment, it produced in a more uncontrolled environment, and comparing to the controlled other food? Yeah, so actually, where we have the fertilizer, everything else is controlled. Yeah,
organic food is just without the pesticide and fertilizer. That's the concept. But to say that it is like it's just a healthier food, that's it.
It's just perceived as healthier, maybe, I would say.
Yeah,
it's actually nothing, you know, not much difference what we do for the conventional food, how we grow fruit we grow. It's only one or two chemicals which you don't apply in organics. but all the other sprays or whatever, for the bud breaking or other things, so which we are using for conventional, so we are using for the organic as well. So if you think that organic is substantially different or healthier than conventional, so that's wrong.
Yeah, but it is substantially expensive.
That's what I'm saying. It's a myth buster that
Yep.
people believe that conventional would be you're applying everything from the scratch like we used to do in the the packages, but no.
So
Yeah,
I think
but
this point relates back to that in conventional, there are so many measures and standards to follow that will not let any industry go beyond the acceptable limits, which are going to be harmful for human health. So, so whatever the applications are being happening in any food industries at conventional level, they should be considering those factors. Otherwise, they wouldn't be really getting those certifications, etc.
yeah,
I
you're
think
right.
I guess we're getting kicked out of the room, guys.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Rubina, you have something to say very quickly?
So we'll just have to leave, I guess.
Yeah. Okay, right.
Thank you very much.
Look, I think I can see the timing as well. So thank you very much for your wonderful presentation. I have learned a lot, by the way, from today's presentation. So thank you very much, and see you next month then. Thank you.
See ya. Bye.
Okay, see you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.